Chapter 39, Passing the Torch. It had been a cold week in Washington, D.C., and the Thursday night, January 19th, 1961, snow fell thick and heavy. Washington, southern in its graciousness and geography, handles snow poorly. Everywhere cars were stalled and people shivered. That evening, the Army and Navy were called. 3,000 servicemen, using 700 snowplows and trucks, worked through the night. The next day the wind was mean and the temperature stayed below freezing, but the streets were clear. Wooden bleachers were set up outdoors in front of the Capitol. At noon, when some 20,000 invited guests filled those bleachers, the winter sun reflecting off the banks of the new snow seemed unusually bright. It was Inauguration Day. Most of the presidential party wore scarves and mittens with their top hats and formal clothes. But the president-elect seemed to generate his own warmth, a quality he had in abundance. He took off his overcoat before he spoke. Then John Fitzgerald Kennedy put his hand on his grandfather's Bible and swore to uphold his mighty responsibilities. At 43, he was the youngest president since Theodore Roosevelt and the youngest man ever elected president. Next to him stood 70-year-old Dwight D. Eisenhower, at the time the oldest man to ever be president. The contrast between the two was as strong as the winter sun. Genial, likable Ike was the son of a poor Midwestern creamery worker, but his easy manner was an outside face. Inside was a core of steel. Eisenhower had worked his way through an Army career to the nation's top job. Harvard-educated JFK, the patrician son of a wealthy businessman, had been given every advantage in our society has to give. But the silver spoons that fed him had not made him lazy. Quite the opposite. He and the other members of the large Kennedy family were trained to serve their country, to achieve and do their best. The wind blew as Robert Frost, America's favorite poet, read part of a poem he had written for this occasion. He spoke of a golden age of poetry and power, of which this noonday is the beginning hour. A golden age of poetry and power. Would this handsome young president bring it about? There were many who believed he could. Not since the first days of Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal had so many eager people clamored to join the political process. The new cabinet, the president's top advisors, was going to be bipartisan. That meant it would include people from both political parties. Some of Kennedy's college professors were leaving their classrooms to become government officials. Thousands of Americans wanted to be part of the excitement that seemed to be building. It was amazing, the number of people who hoped to work to help their nation. John Kennedy had already suggested a Peace Corps, a volunteer agency that would let Americans unselfishly share their experience and knowledge with less fortunate nations. The young president, with his intense blue eyes, his thick head of hair, and his engaging smile, stepped up to the lectern and began to speak. "We observe today not a victory of party, but a celebration of freedom," he said in strong, self-confident New England tones. Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed. Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and the success of liberty. Let us begin anew, remembering on both sides that civility is not a sign of weakness. Then he challenged his listeners. If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. On that bright January afternoon, hope vibrated in the air. Our new president had big dreams that everyone could share. He intended that the nation reach for greatness within itself. He was surrounding himself with men and women who could be called the best and the brightest. He expected to get things done. Everyone talked of his charisma. Charisma is an exceptional ability for leadership and for securing the devotion of large numbers of people. And so, when he noticed in the inaugural parade that there were no black cadets among the Coast Guard marchers, his first act as president was to call an aide and ask him to do something about that. The next September, there was a black professor and several black cadets at the Coast Guard Academy. This man, John F. Kennedy, was determined to be an active president, a good president, a president who would inspire the nation. You may pause the video and read this section about Rachel Carson to yourself.